We're back with another episode of Leading with Joy, conversations with C-suite leaders, where we speak with business leaders to hear their stories and strategies. This time, we're pleased to welcome Mr. Iqbal Jumabhoy, CEO and Executive Director of ProsperCap, to share his experiences with us. Now, Iqbal comes with a wealth of experience in the real estate management and investment. He was formerly at Continental Illinois National Bank and Trust Company of Chicago, Scott's Holdings Limited, the East Asiatic Company, and has also served as CEO of companies in the hospitality and real estate development industry, such as the Ncorp Group, Rendezvous Hospitality Group, and Silver Needle Hospitality. Earlier this year, in January, ProsperCap commenced trading on the SGX Catalyst board as well. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Iqbal. And as we start off this conversation, could you start off with sharing with us some of the core business focus for ProsperCap?
ProsperCap is, the whole purpose of it is actually to be a value-added investor in the hospitality space. We bring together the experience of our parent company, DTGO, which initially invested in these hotels in the UK. But what a lot of people do not know is that they are also developing several hospitality and other kinds of property in Thailand, outside of ProsperCap. So we bring that together with some of the principles of increasing the value of the hotels that we invest in, whether that is through organic development, whether that is by introducing sustainability into the hotels, which everybody thinks costs money, but actually it makes good business sense for many reasons. Not just because it makes people feel good, but actually because it translates into direct profits.
I see. Okay, we will talk a little bit more about that later on. Yeah. So, how would you say that? How is the portfolio of ProsperCap different from its peers in this industry? What was the value proposition of ProsperCap?
You see, every portfolio has got pluses and minuses. If I want to talk about our pluses, the first is that we have a structure that's slightly different, in that we are owners, but rather than to use the brands as our managers, we use a third-party management company. What that means is that we have a single management company whom we talk to, whom we are pushing for performance, and whom we can also rely on for advice, as well as support in other areas, including redevelopment, looking for value-adding enhancements, as well as looking out for opportunities to grow. So that's one side. The second thing that makes us a little different is that we have got, we work with major brands, and those are selected on the basis either of their distribution, meaning their ability to get us customers into our hotels, the quality of their brands and the brand standards, as well as the fact that we make sure we select them such that we don't have competition between, because nowadays you have these mega hotel companies with multiple brands, and what you want to be sure is that you're not competing, they are not competing against the hotels that they are managing or franchising. And by having three companies support us in that area, it gives us that opportunity to mix and match.
I see. Right. So on this aspect, right, could you also share with us more about the current situation in terms of the UK hospitality industry after pandemic, right?
Sure.
What are some of the key opportunities that you see in this industry at the moment?
I think post-pandemic, we've moved into a very different world.
Yes.
Where we all, not just in the UK, but initially we thought that now we have worked remotely, we can work remotely forever. That was one school of thought. The other school of thought was that we've worked remotely, that was for the pandemic, now it's over, everybody comes back. The truth is actually somewhere in between.
So it's a mix already.
So what's happening is that people are working remotely. However, the value of meeting has become much more pronounced. So what's happening is that you're getting people, some of whom are working in offices more or in some kind of hybrid model, But the other part of that is actually where people are, we have company meetings, many more company meetings, smaller seminars and conferences. And that's actually been very good for us at ProsperCap.
Yes,
Because
definitely.
we've got lots of hotels with lots of meeting space. So from that perspective, it's actually a big plus. Also, a lot of people don't know that, because the general view is that the most profitable hotels, the highest income levels are in 5-star or 5-star luxury.
Okay.
The truth is actually that the 4-star market, the business hotel market, takes away a very large proportion of that market. And people say, how can that be? Generally what happens is that, some people have a budget for one kind of hotel or another kind of hotel. The C-suite will say, okay, I only want to stay in luxury, and everybody else has to stay somewhere else. Today, we don't think that way. We say that all of us stay in the same hotel, and the kind of level that we are at, which is the upscale, the upper mid-scale, is getting the bulk of that business. So Hazel, the other point I wanted to make was that one of the common mistakes people make when you talk about UK hotels is that they immediately think London.
Oh, okay.
And the reality is that the London market, London supply and demand, or London supply is what it is, but the demand is very, very different from the hotels outside of London.
Oh, in what way?
London hotels tend to be driven by a foreign market. So foreign factors, whether it's conflict, whether it's economic conditions overseas, tend to affect the London hotels much more.
Okay, I see.
That's good and bad, by the way. In good times, it means
There's a
they do
boom.
much better. In bad times, it's much harder. However, the regional hotels, such as the portfolio that ProsperCap has got, has a much larger proportion of local travel, that's domestic travel, both business and leisure. Depends on the hotel, of course. But so therefore the dynamic is very different, and as we're seeing, it's a much more stable,
More resilient.
more stable environment to participate in, provided you can keep your quality and you can continue to remind people that you're around. So from my perspective, that makes it a very interesting segment. Last point I'll make on that is that as a consequence, the yields that you can expect on investments outside of London is much higher than the yields within London. Because people buy the hotels for return as opposed to location or ego or whatever it is that London hotels seem to.
I see. That's really insightful to understand more about. Right. So another thing that we would like to hear from you would be in terms of the strategic direction for ProsperCap. So could you share with us more details on ProsperCap's key strategic direction, the expansion plans, the growth plans going forward?
First of all, I'm going to say that in our RTO prospectus, we said a lot of things about growth plans. We talked about expanding our footprint internationally. We talked about expanding the portfolio to other areas of accommodation, which would include serviced apartments or purpose-built student accommodation, etc., etc. But let's look at it from a realistic perspective. These are good from a longer-term perspective. But in the shorter term, what do we look at? One, what is the risk profile of whatever we are looking at with regard to growth?
Okay.
What does risk mean? It means country risk. It means stage of development of the projects. It means the ability to manage, to be sure that we can actually get the maximum out of the property. So in that regard, if you look at all of those, in terms of stability and economic conditions, obviously the UK is something where we have a footprint, we're strong, and it means that growth in that kind of market is obviously easier for us to digest than somewhere else. The second thing on that is we already have an operating management team through our partners at Valor, but as well as having our own people on the ground. So that gives us an ability to cut our risk as we go forward. So that is likely to be a direction for us. I say likely because at this point we have not made any announcements as regards specific growth plans. The second, of course, is that we can rely in Thailand on our major shareholder. They have a large footprint. They have several projects running. So Thailand would, of course, be a very attractive market for us because we have advantages.
Yes, definitely.
So those are, I'm giving you, if you like, a structure, a strategic, the way that we think about it. Or as an underlay to all of that, we look at a few things. Number one, where can we add value? You can go in there and say, look, I can run it better than someone else can. The second is there possibility for expansion, further development? For example, in our current portfolio, we already identified areas where we can grow the existing hotels, such as have more meeting rooms, or have more bedrooms, depending where it is, improve the restaurants, improve the spas. So those are the kinds of value-added enhancements you can have with your existing hotels. The third, should we be looking at, if we were to look at something, should we be looking at the branding of the hotels as we have them, or should we change those, make it more so that we can enhance the returns? And the last I will make is, can we add value through sustainability upgrades? So in fact, with our existing hotels, we've already done that by shifting from coal-fired to gas-fired. That reduces our carbon footprint as well as improves our bottom line. So those are some of the things that we can do, and there are several opportunities to work with external providers where they provide equipment, and we share the gains so that we don't have to actually put cash out.
The capital in. Yeah. Oh, yes. I mean, it's definitely great that if we are able to do something on environment, right, and at the same time, it also helps in the financial aspects, right? Like
absolutely. And Hazel, I should tell you that it is a core focus of our group, that we want to do things that benefit society, benefit mankind. I mean, and this is not just talk. It is not just talk. We have done that in several of our hotels from as I've mentioned, with regard to the type of electricity we're using, heat exchangers so that we don't waste heat. So that's the second thing that we've done. And ultimately enhancing the lives of the people who work in our group. Where before, the portfolio was acquired by our shareholder before COVID. During COVID, every hospitality company suffered. All of them let go people. We were perhaps one of the very few companies, our shareholder did not fire a single person.
Yeah, so it's really great to hear about all these plans that you have for ProsperCap that's upcoming, and we definitely are looking forward to all of these expansion and growth plans. Right. So moving on, so you talk about a little bit about how you may like to in the future add on top of hotels, maybe add on service apartments and say student accommodations and so on. So would ProsperCap be also looking out to branch into other sectors on top of hospitality, or you would just be only doubling down on hospitality?
Well, as I've said, we have the mandate if we wish to go into other areas. But we're still a small company. Realistically, we should play to our strengths.
Yes, at least at this moment.
Yes. So at the moment, we believe that the hospitality area is a more viable place for us to be.
And you have that competitive advantage.
And we have at least we have a strategy. We have the people. We have the footprint. We have the relationships with the brands, as well as the relationship with the property managers.
Yeah, the key stakeholders in
Absolutely.
this. Yeah. So we see that now, as of now, in the portfolio, there are a total of 17 hotels, right? So 15 of them are in key regional cities in UK and 2 in Scotland. And it also appears that pretty much all these hotels are more on the upscale hotels with renowned international brands such as Marriott and so on. So we believe that it is, coming from a market positioning point of view, it could be deliberate. So could you share with us what are some of the benefits of doing so with such a market positioning?
We believe that this is the segment with the strongest demand from domestic, both business and personal tourism or personal travel, and that's for that reason we believe that this is a segment that we can play in. Secondly, some things that people sometimes don't always see is that you actually build up an expertise in a certain segment, at a certain level, in a certain profile, and we having a consistency across our brands helps us to maintain that.
Because we have also read a lot about how ProsperCap is always looking out for opportunities in the markets, right? And you would like to create additional but sustainable revenue going forward for the stakeholders. So could you share with us what are some of the key considerations that ProsperCap looks at in deciding which properties to invest in?
We look at a few factors. We look at the ability for us to manage, and the ability for the properties themselves to give us additional value, the ability to be sustainable, and we look at the market risks.
Okay, so these are the key factors.
These are the key factors.
Right, which we have covered about them.
We covered that.
Sure.
So I'm not. I don't want to repeat myself, but that's basically guides us
The fundamentals.
through. It's the fundamentals.
So right now, the pandemic is really behind us. People are resuming their travel, be it for personal or for business, right? And when we take a look at the operating performance of the hotels, they have also been doing well, where there is improvements in the portfolio occupancy, in terms of the average daily rate, and so on. Moving forward, what are some other foreseeable challenges that you think may potentially impact travel, and what are some measures that we could actually look at to mitigate such risks?
The major risks are well identified. Number one, it's economic conditions. Because we rely on domestic travel, domestic economic conditions are very important to us,
That's right.
particularly in the post-Brexit world.
Okay.
So we look at that, and we think that that's very relevant as we go forward. The second is the interest rate environment. You may have seen in the press recently that we've done a fairly significant refinancing,
Yes.
and refinancing to a large extent depends on how much you're paying for your money,
Yes, the cost of it.
the cost of your money. So that's a significant risk. The third is your actual cost of doing business. And the biggest proportion of that comes from two sources: people cost and energy costs. So those, I would say, are the three significant areas.
Right.
Right? I can always go into supply, demand, etc. But that's pretty motherhood kind of statements. But these are real issues that we are having to tackle every day.
Yes. So you spoke about refinancing, right? So ProsperCap recently secured loan facilities of up to $310 million. So
Pounds.
Yes, pounds, right. What are the strategic objectives of entering into both the senior and mezzanine loan facilities, and how does this align with the company's long-term growth plans?
A lot of people say money is money. From our perspective, that's not completely correct.
Okay.
Because I think as a new company, something that actually has not been talked much about is the fact that we secured these facilities with two important major international financial institutions, Deutsche Bank and Standard Chartered. Why? The purpose of doing that was to start to build banking relationships internationally for ProsperCap. So that's one of the advantages. The second reason, of course, we had to refinance. We have our existing facilities. I say existing because we're drawing down in about a week. But the existing facilities coming due at the end of this year. And we wanted to be sure that we were refinanced well before that.
I see.
So that there's no further risk. So that's the second advantage. The third is that we've set up facilities that are a bit larger than our refinancing. And the reason is that we intend to invest in our existing properties to upgrade. Hilton has a property improvement program, and we are completing parts of that. Plus, there are opportunities for us to increase returns by reinvesting in our properties, by expanding existing properties or upgrading.
I see. And that will unlock greater value in these properties.
That's it.
Yes.
You should be doing my business. You know exactly what I'm gonna say.
No, definitely you are the expert in
No,
this.
hardly.
All right. So you talked a little bit about interest rate earlier on as well, right? So against the evolving interest rate climate, what impact does the floating interest rate have on the company's financial planning, and anything else that you would like to share on how ProsperCap manages its interest rate risk?
What we do, first of all, the interest rate environment, or the actual level of interest rates, is key from our perspective, because that makes the difference between profit and loss, right? So we're always looking out at the interest rate. Our bank loans are on a floating rate, so that's so therefore that's always a risk. So that's, if you like, on one side. The good news is that till the end of this year, we have hedged the interest rate. So we actually locked in some pretty good rates.
I see. All right.
And what we intend to do is to, and one of the agreements with our lenders is to continue to hedge interest rates after that. What we are hoping will happen towards this week actually. We're hoping that the Fed will cut interest rates further.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are looking at.
Yeah, and hopefully that will make the cost of our interest rate cap lower.
I see. Now I'm really curious. Are there any reasons why ProsperCap chose to list in Singapore as opposed to, say, in the UK where the properties are located, or say in Thailand where the parent company is based in?
Let's break that down into two or three different things.
Okay.
Number one, our parent company had a view that they should list, the properties were outside of Thailand. So then the question is, where should you list?
Yes.
If your growth is going to be perhaps in Asia, perhaps or more internationally, being in Asia is a good thing. So that's the first. If you look at Asia, and you look at Southeast Asia in particular, the most cosmopolitan or international market in this region is actually Singapore. The opportunity to tap other kinds of financial instruments also much more available in Singapore. The ability of the market for foreign investors to come in and exit, it's a completely open free market.
Yes.
So there were many reasons, and then at the end of the day, they decided that an RTO made sense because it was quick. The cost would be lower than a direct listing, and the third is that the opportunity presented itself with a completely clean shell.
Yes. So everything would.
It kind of like the stars aligned.
Let's now talk a little bit about ESG. Right. So on this topic of ESG, what are some of the key ESG factors that are material to the group?
Our parent company has got several factors that actually guide them every single day. What a lot of people, or McKinsey just did a study, and they said between 36 to 40% of global emissions come from the built environment, from the building industry. Now, some of that comes from the way things are built. whether whether it's transport, whether it's materials, whatever. The second is the way things are actually operated.
Okay.
So I think it's quite important to recognize that those are quite different. So what we are trying to do is, in the first instance, on properties we already have and we already own, it's a question of how do we improve all our statistics. And what does that mean? One is energy consumption. The second is the type of energy consumption. The third is materials such as this. I mean, generally my colleagues know actually that I'm quite painful because I tell them, send me something send it to me on an email, send it to me on this, don't give me paper. If you look at my room, I've got no files.
Wow. Okay.
Almost no files. There's some which you have to have. But we're trying to reduce all of that. Something that my colleagues are looking at the moment is also our calling cards. So those are small things. But actually you can go through that. If you think of that philosophy and take it through your entire hotel,
makes a lot of
then
difference.
it begins to snowball into a difference. Okay, so those are some of the operating items. The second, how do you handle things like when you're looking to acquire, and there you look to see, how good, when you're looking at a property, how well have they thought about ESG.
Okay.
The second is how well what is the opportunity to continue to improve that. So it doesn't mean you always buy where it's perfect, but you buy where either it's well done or can be made better.
Can be improved.
Yes. So that's how we look at it, and that is a factor in every single discussion we have on an opportunity. The other things that I personally care about, and the group does as well, is diversity. That too is part of it. And in my parent company, social inclusion. So that's very important. And what I'm hoping to introduce into our hotels is where every GM, in my past, I have introduced where every GM was required to submit a plan as to how they're going to enhance the local community.
Wow. Okay. That's really a great.
So, that's
initiative.
quite important, because otherwise hotels are these ivory towers sitting somewhere where the majority of the world doesn't enter. Right? Whereas if you somehow participate in the local environment in some way, you've uplifted and made yourself relevant.
Value adding.
You're no longer just a place to sleep in.
More than just that.
Yes. And you're actually a fabric of the society.
Yes, and in that way, that will also in turn help in terms of the financial performance as well. Eventually, right?
Ultimately, that's important, and something that nobody talks about. Actually, your hotels are in the community. The people who work for you are in the community. All your colleagues are from there.
Yes.
So if you are enhancing the community, you're indirectly enhancing the lives of the people who are working in the hotels.
Yes, that's really great.
And you're giving them pride.
Yes, definitely. And for them, they wouldn't just see work as just work. It could be more than just that.
What motivates people? The hierarchy of needs and all of that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But I'm going to suggest that one of the things that does motivate people is purpose.
Finding the purpose.
Finding a purpose.
What role would you say does the board of directors play in overseeing this ESG initiatives?
Our board of directors is a very active board, and I'm very grateful for that. One of the non-independent directors is actually spearheading some of those efforts within the parent company, and she is on our board as well. And she's a huge source of advice for us in this area.
So in this aspect of pursuing all these ESG initiatives, can you share with us also any challenges that you have faced in implementing them and how were they overcome?
We're a new company. So what I'm going to suggest is that the easiest ones, the low-hanging fruit don't necessarily make a financial impact, but it makes an emotional impact, which is to tell people that they have to participate in efforts for the environment. So that's the first. After that, you go down into things like this we have already benefited from, such as our energy initiatives. We currently have a situation and a conversation that is going on where we have a symbiotic relationship with another party next door. And so now the challenge is to persuade them to join us in this initiative for the good of the community and for the good so it's for the community, for the environment, and ultimately for both our bottom lines.
Yes.
So watch this space and I'll tell you if we're successful.
Yeah, because I think a concern from the point of view of a lot of companies is how can I actually balance the ESG with the focus on ESG with the financial performance, right? So this has always been something that companies are struggling with in these times where more and more people are talking about ESG.
I think there are two kinds of, or maybe there's more, initiatives, because everybody talks about E but not the S. So I've talked about the S, the social
inclusion.
Social inclusion. Governance is very important, which is the G, diversity, equal opportunity. So all of those, so the S and the G are there. Now on the E, the bad news has been that it's been difficult to find ways to make it profitable. The good news is that actually that has changed.
Oh, in what way?
First of all, the cost of equipment, the cost of initiatives has come down. The second is that there are several more incentives and opportunities in many countries, and the UK is one of them, which help you if you're doing things in a sustainable and environmentally sustainable way. So I think that then the last is not there, which is inertia.
Inertia.
Yeah. So if you have inertia, you have a problem. But if you have an active strategy, then you remove that inertia.
And that's where you have...
And that's what we attempt to do.
Right. So thank you for sharing about all these strategy plans on ProsperCap as well as your ESG initiatives. Now let's shift our focus a little bit to talk about the company culture as well as our thoughts on leadership. So right now, what are some of the core values and mission for ProsperCap?
One of the things that's, if I can turn the question a little bit, my colleagues, I think, are sick of hearing me say that we are a startup with 2,000 people. But we are a startup. Why? Because you have the people who are working in the hotels don't necessarily look to us. They look to the brands, they look to Valor's management company. So one of the tasks we have, and we think that should continue, by the way, but we think that there's a third element, which is they need to look to us. They need to look to working with us, particularly on our strategic goals, and particularly on the value systems of inclusion, value systems of respect for each other, the value systems. Fortunately, a lot of this aligns with the systems that Valor already has in place. So what we've done is to start in a small way by having them town hall meetings with the GMs, talking to the staff. Our goal going forward is to increase that cultural element so that they don't see us as a foreign investor, but they see us as an integral part of their work. We are colleagues and we work together, and we work together for a common good and a common purpose, and that's actually what we're trying to do. So the first start of that, as I said, was a town hall meeting with all the GMs. We told them what we're doing, where we're going. We're about to enter an annual planning process.
Okay.
It's September now, and by December we'll have to complete our budgets for next year. Our goal is to use that process to make sure that we are more involved in the lives of our hotels. I'm going to the UK, by the way, in a couple of weeks, and one of the things I'll be doing is discussing with the senior management in Valor the initiatives that we will put into place.
That's really important.
In order to be more evident in the lives of the people who work with us.
What steps do you actually take to foster a more positive and inclusive company culture? Or perhaps you could share with us more about the type of company culture that you actually aim to cultivate at ProsperCap.
I think one of the most important things in culture is respect.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Again, I'm going to say that the good news both at Valor as well as in our parent company is that they take that quite seriously as well. So the point is, but what's the biggest problem with words like respect? They're just words. How are you going to make that part of what you do every day? And that can only be done by the way you interact. You can use structural means to do that, but how you interact is very key.
Yeah, so the tone that you set.
The tone you set. To be honest, actually, I'm going to say that we've made no exceptions here with regard to race, religion, anything,
that's very
gender.
important.
We've not done any of that. So it's been who can do the job. If you can do the job, we respect you. If you're willing to put in the time, we respect you. To the point where last week, while we were doing our refinancing, I don't know what time people slept. I really don't. I know that at 2 a.m. on the night that we are supposed to sign, I finally sent a text to my colleagues and I said, listen, are we ready to sign? Because I'm going to fall over. I have a flight at 8 o'clock in the morning. But people were working. Everybody was working. And it wasn't me saying, hey guys, you better be here.
It's because all of them have
because they have a common goal and
Yes.
a common purpose and their own respect for their colleagues, the fact that others were working. And the fact that I stayed up with, actually they were doing all the work, but I stayed up, and the only reason, or one of the reasons, was basically I want to tell my colleagues I'm with you in this.
Yes, that's really a very good example that you have set.
So that's I don't know how good I am, but I try to be as so respect is very important. Having a company culture that's built on performance and excellence is important. So when you go through all of those, I still haven't mentioned financial returns, and I tell you why. Because if you have mutual respect and you have people whom you respect for doing a good job and they're performing, frankly, that is a result. It's not.
And you will show up already.
Yeah.
Yes, right. And very lastly, could you share with us, are there any strategies or practices that you implement for yourself to foster a more joyful work environment? Especially when you are holding on to a C-suite role, and very typically you would come into situations where there is high stress, high pressure.
Bubble tea.
Oh, bubble tea. That's your favorite. It's as simple as that.
I honestly shouldn't drink it, but anyway.
I hope that's not too often.
No, it's not that. One of the things that we have to do is to bring a diverse group of people together. So hopefully by introducing some things that are less formal, and it's not deliberate. It's not, I don't go out and say, oh, today I'm going to make everyone laugh. It's not like that. But to have that environment where people are comfortable to laugh and comfortable to come to work, that would create
a very
joyful environment.
Yes, for everyone in the company to work together.
I hope so. I hope the stress doesn't get so high that everybody feels less good about it, but that's the way it is.
All right. Thank you, Iqbal, for sharing on this very insightful conversation, and I had a really great time speaking with you today. Thank
Hazel,
you.
thank you so much.